Ed, did you have any trouble getting on tonight?
No, I just asked for password, that's all. And
Yeah, right. And it's never done that.
I know, I think it's something to do with the streaming setup, but I think people that don't use it a lot are unfamiliar with, they're gonna have a problem.
Right. If they don't know it's 1818.
Wait a minute, that password has always been there in the past, hasn't it? Always ask for a password.
No,
Yeah, but
it
it was
never
always
asked for
automatic.
password.
Oh, the two
I had
different
trouble getting on
screens.
too.
Yeah,
We're on
All right.
YouTube and Facebook.
yeah, but it's never asked for a password until tonight. I'm like,
Yeah, I wouldn't mention the password again.
oh, sorry.
That's all right.
You know what I did? I ended up putting it in from Saturday night
Oh,
just to see, and then it happens. Yeah, the other way wouldn't work. So I was almost called you, Adele.
Hi, my name is Rabbi David Foreman. Today we'll be discussing the Ten Commandments and why they might still be relevant after 3,000 years.
all right. Just wondering.
Yeah, usually I call Adele and say, "What's the matter? Help." What a nice day today, huh?
Beautiful.
Did
Yeah,
it,
it was like,
did it rain? Did you
Yes.
have rain, Candy?
Little bit.
No, you know what? It drizzled for like 5 minutes, and that was it.
It poured here.
Oh, really?
Oh my goodness, it was pouring.
Oh, no. Well, cut to Salem.
Boston was nice.
But I know Temple Emmanuel was supposed to have their confirmation ceremony outside, and they had to move it. They had to move it inside because of they were afraid of the rain.
That's too.
You reading?
Yeah, no.
Eileen, iced tea, I hope, huh?
Mango, peach, green tea.
Oh, okay.
He wanted to make sure it wasn't wine.
I should be so lucky.
Keeping tabs on you. Can't get away with anything around here, Eileen.
I know. Big brother is watching me.
Since we're on YouTube and, Facebook, gotta be careful what you people are doing.
But I imbibe. Oh, this is really good.
Is it
crystal-
mango?
It's Crystal Light. I believe it's mango, peach mango, iced tea mix, but it's green tea. However, you can't find it anymore, and they are charging exorbitant prices for it online. It's
Wow.
only $3 in the supermarket. Now it's like $10 online. So I
Oh,
won't buy
wow.
You better find another.
Is it worth
drink.
it?
I won't pay $10.
No, that's true.
I called the company. I said, "What's the story?" Well, production's been slowed down. Likely story.
Yeah.
They slowed down production so they could raise the price.
Well, they said that the retail price in the stores should be $2.99. I normally pay about $3. And I had bought a case of it for $36 because I didn't want to keep buying 3 and 3 and 3. And I'm using that up, and there's no more available at a reasonable price. So if anyone
Wow.
sees it, let me know. Peach mango iced tea.
Huh.
Peach mango
Well,
iced tea.
drink it slowly.
I do.
Continue.
I do. If you see this, let me know.
Oh,
Oh. It's crystal
I've
light.
never seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Very refreshing.
So is that the kind that you mix with water?
Yes.
Hmm.
It's peach mango green tea, natural flavor with other natural flavor. That's interesting. And it has these little packets
Nice.
that you mix with water.
Whoa, good to know.
Yeah. If you ever find it, try it. You'll love it.
Eileen, just to try to help
Then
you
we'll have
out.
to spend $10.
No. Yes, Harold. What
Drink it slow and don't pee.
You're a big help.
Make it last that much longer.
You're all hard, I gotta tell you.
I'm just trying to help you out, that's all, you know what I mean?
I really appreciate your thoughtfulness and your consideration. But I'm not gonna do what you tell me. We got
Hello.
Hello?
Good evening.
How do you do?
I do. How about you do?
What are you drinking?
Mayim.
Mayim? Oh, okay. Mine is Mayim with flavor.
Mayim Chaim. Mayim Chaim. I'm going into the mikveh with my drink.
Did it go down? Okay.
Hello, Wasatskis.
Hello, Rabbi. How are you?
Haven't talked to you in a while.
I got your other email.
Okay.
Not a problem.
It's all set, I hope.
Well, it's not done yet, but it will be.
Thank you. We're gonna, when we get started, Rabbi Bernie, we're gonna start off with Ashrei and Kaddish for Mincha, which I'll ask you to lead. Then Mona's gonna light our candles for us tonight, and then we'll begin Yom Tov, okay?
Sounds good to me.
Such an easy guy to work with.
Well, I happen to agree with what you're saying. That always helps, doesn't it?
But if you didn't, you wouldn't tell anybody, would you?
Yeah, well, it hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't.
Hey, Bernie,
Yes.
can you put that bim bim bum bum on paper so we could all read it together?
But that's only for Shabbat. We won't be doing that tonight.
No, but I understand
But
that.
we'll write it. He'll write a bulletin article on it.
Okay.
Boy,
Why
Harold,
not?
full of good ideas tonight.
Yeah, right.
Tough words to remember.
We'll put the words to the score, so that they can follow along to the music.
Yeah, you're right. It seems to be the same way every week, though.
Bim, bum.
Bum 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 bim. Do.
Well, do we have a Paula tonight?
I don't know.
She's entitled to take a night off.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't give anybody notice, though.
No.
That's nice.
No.
How are we gonna know what day it is?
Yeah. Oh, oh.
Harold, you could.
Maybe she's trying to get online.
I think she's gonna be her theme song is gonna be "Does Anyone Know What Time It Is" by Chicago. Does anybody really know what time it is?
Does anybody really care?
Yes, we sent out a new email which gave everybody the password. So you're in. So those of you that are joining us on YouTube and Facebook, if you tried to get in and you couldn't, you did get an email with an updated password.
It's Sunday, the 16th of whatever month we're in, May. And it's
Whatever.
All right, so
Should be 7 o'clock.
Yes.
Yes.
yes, I mean for those of us in Zoom. All right, so We're going to welcome everybody. It's not quite Yom Tov yet, so we're going to start out with the Ashrei and then the Kaddish for Mincha. That's the Sunday Yortzites, and also those saying Kaddish for a loved one. And so I'm going to ask Rabbi Bernie if he will begin with the Ashrei and then the mourner's Kaddish for Mincha. Rabbi?
Sure. Ashrei Ashrei v'teku adilucha sela Ashrei mishkaklam shnei lahavtil eladavid Armim kalai melech babach Hashem kalilam ved b'choim amar chakabel Hashem kalilam ved Gedol and amehulam yad b'lay b'loten chek Gedol josmaka sahu v'retef gidu Hadak v'odatek v'divay navjaka sicha v'zus notek ma'uguat kasaprena Zeg rab tuvka bivitzit chatkar renenukan rachumanech mahud al-chased tov nel kovrach mamsav dukan ekom asegla zebechuka kavod malchut karim uguratri debero lodiv devdam of Malkuto, Malkut Hamukul Kolman Shalkaput of Dos, Mechana Colon Glimso, Kepkopim, a Nichol expert, Tanotain Klambito, Potea, Ketchadeki, open up your hand, Umaspil, Cholcharatzon, and satisfy every living being according to your will. Sadi can have a call of Chassid, become myself, Krover, and Chokrov, Cholashi, Kruvamet. Return we have a savage every time I show you shame, trying to call about Coach Mead. Chilat and I double PV Varek, Kobaso, Shame Kacholi, Lamba, Ed, Vaanat Nunabareka. Hallelujah.
Those of you reciting Kaddish, as I said earlier, for a Yortzeit or for Sunday, or for a loved one, you may open your mics. Please rise and recite the words together with Rabbi Bernie.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba v'alma divra kirute v'yamlik malchute v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael Ba'agala ubizman karib yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam umei omayim. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ah v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yiradar v'yitaleh v'yitala shmei dekudsha v'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiram v'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'alko Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom v'rama u'yaseh shalom aleinu v'alko Yisrael v'yimru amen.
Amen. All right, that concludes the Mincha service for Sunday, and we're just going to wait for Mona as she's having a moment. She's having a moment getting in. Sorry about that. I guess a link went out that was a little faulty tonight. Didn't include the PW, but it's another email went out, and Mona's coming in momentarily, and she'll light our Yom Tov candles if she can get in. If not, I've got you covered. We got you covered, and we'll begin our service. Tonight's service will be beginning with the Ma'ariv for Yom Tov, and then after our Kiddush, before our Aleinu, we're not going to count anymore because we're there. So instead, we'll do something else that counts, and tonight we'll be awarding our scholarships right after the Kiddush, and then we'll conclude with Aleinu and Yigdal with my favorite melody, Rabbi. And then after that, we have a Tikkun Leil Shavuot. We'll be studying a little bit with a special presentation from those of you that join us for our lunch bunch on a regular basis. Rabbi Foreman will be talking about the importance of the 10 Commandments. So that's our night for tonight. So let's see, did Mona get in? Maybe not.
I don't see her.
All right, I don't see her. So, having said that, let me do this. Let me do this. And if you look behind me, do you see behind me? Does everybody see behind me? If you see behind me,
yes,
you'll see two candles.
Yes, I see the candles.
They are burning.
Yes.
So, let us light the candles together. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Yom Tov.
Shel Yom Tov. Mona's here.
There she is. All right. Well, if Mona's here, I'll do the Shechianu and then she can do it again. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu b'olam shechianu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh.
Amen.
Now, Mona, did you get here?
I got here. I
All right,
couldn't.
Mona.
I have
Mona.
1,002,002 passwords, and I had no idea what my password was.
Well,
Too
now
many,
you
I'm
do.
used to just clicking and signing in.
So go ahead and light the candles now again for everyone.
Okay, I can do that. If I don't break the matches. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel yom tov.
Amen.
Amen.
And Shechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Amen. All right. Did a double mitzvah. Mona, thank you for always being ready. I know it wasn't your fault tonight, so
I'm sorry.
it's okay. It's okay. All right. With that, we are now definitely in Yom Tov mode. Candles lit, obviously here in my chapel and in your chapel. And now that it is Yom Tov, it's time for us to begin a holiday, a Yom Tov, a Chag that I'll talk a little bit more about, I'm sure, at Yisker, but it's interesting how when we think about the three festivals, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, Shavuot seems to somehow be left out a little bit. It's almost as though people don't really celebrate it as much as we would Passover, because we've got the Seder and we've got family that come over and everybody gets together. And then Sukkot, of course, where you bring people to your sukkah for a meal and festival and whatnot. I think the festival of Shavuot isn't perhaps as large because we don't do this big food celebration. We do cheesecake and ice cream and cheese blintzes. Rabbi, I think it's time for us to put on the menu. I think it's time for us to just change it. We're going to have to start doing prime rib on Shavuot. Zman Matan Toratenu. I mean, it's the festival where God gave us the Torah, and if it's going to take prime rib to get people excited about the Torah, Rabbi, I'm for it. I'm. What do you think, huh?
Well, I don't know. We'd be breaking tradition. We're having eggplant parmesan, so that's a little switch too.
Well, you're here.
Yes.
It is funny though. It's very interesting because Zman Matan Toratenu. It's the time when God gave us the great gift of Torah, and one would think that we're getting into the first harvest now. We're starting to now bring in the first fruits. The pollen, I know, is a lot. It's crazy, but if it wasn't for that Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot festival, where would we be, right? So let us move it on as we begin our service for Shavuot Eve with the Baruch Hu. We welcome everyone with the call to worship. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevarach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevarach Le'olam Va'ed. We'll ask everyone to mute at this time. Rabbi Bernie will be leading us in Praised Are You.
Praised are you, Adonai, our God, who rules the universe, your word bringing the evening dusk. You open with wisdom the gates of dawn and design the day with wondrous skill. Set out the succession of seasons and arrange the stars in the sky according to your will. Adonai Tzevaot, you create day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness away from light. Eternal God, your sovereignty shall forever embrace us. Praise are you, Adonai, for each evening's dusk.
Umavir yom mevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila. Adonai tzavaot shemo. El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai, amariv haravim. Page 29, if you're following at home. Avat alam beit Yisrael, gahav Torah mitzvot. Ki heim chayenu v'yorech yameinu uvahem negei yamam v'layla v'avahatcha al tasir mimenu leolamim baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. You may open and join if you choose. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Please mute the mics as Rabbi Bernie continues.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shachbecha u'b'kumecha Okeshatam liot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, u'chetabtam al mezuzot beitecha, u'v'hisharecha.
As we continue silently, v'hayayim shemot Yisrael.
Leman yirbu yemechem v'imei b'nechem al hadama asher nishba Adonai lavotechem latet lahem k'mei shemayim al haaretz.
And on page 31, continuing with Vayomer.
Vayomer Adonai al Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta aleihem v'yasu lahem tzitzit al kanfei b'dehem ledorotam v'natnu al tzitzit hakanaf petil techelet v'haya lachem letzitzit uritem oto Uzachartem et kol mitzvot Adonai v'asitem otam v'lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem asher atem zonim achareihem leman tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kidoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher otzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Page 32. U'malchuta b'ratzon kiblu aleihem Moshe b'nei Yisrael l'chanu shira v'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam mi chamocha bo'elim Adonai mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh nora tehilot osef ele malchutecha ra'u v'necha b'keyam lifnei Moshe Ze'elianu v'yameru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. V'nemar kipada Adonai et Yaakov v'golo mi'ad chazak mimenu baruch ata Adonai Yisrael. Again, with mics muted, please join Rabbi Bernie in the Hashkivenu English together.
Help us, Adonai, to lie down in peace and awaken us again, our sovereign, to life. Spread over us your shelter of peace and guide us with your good counsel. Save us because of your mercy. Shield us from enemies and pestilence, from starvation, sword, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, O God, who watches over us and delivers us, our gracious and merciful ruler. Guard our coming and our going. Grant us life and peace now and always. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Praise are you, Adonai, who spreads the shelter of peace over us, over all his people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Ahashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chayim, ufros aleinu sukat shalomecha, v'takneinu b'yetzah tova milfanecha, v'hoshienu l'man shemecha, v'hagem badeinu v'yaser me'aleinu, Oyev deva v'cherev v'rav yagon, Yaser satom milfoneinu miyachareinu, U'b'tzel kenofecha tasdireinu, Ki el shomreinu u'matzilenu ata, Ki el melech chanun v'rachum ata, U'shmo tzeitenu v'oenu, L'chaim u'shalom me'ata v'yad olam. Ufros aleinu sukat shalom mecha baruch ata Adonai. Aporei sukat shalom aleinu v'yal kol amo Yisrael v'yal Yerushalayim. If you're following at home, page 34, we normally stand as we declare the festival, Rabbi in English, and I'll repeat it in Hebrew.
Thus Moses proclaimed the festivals of Adonai before the people Israel.
Vayidaber Moshe et Moed Adonai el bnei Yisrael yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yama divra chirutei v'yam nechmalchutei b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayechon beit Yisrael b'hagala u'bizman kariv v'yimru.
Amen.
Yehesh merabah mevarach leolam u'me'omaya.
Yitbarach.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yiromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kodesha.
Berichu
liyehela mincha b'chata b'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiram b'yama v'yimru.
Amen.
We turn now in our Sidurim to page 41. If you have one at home, A or B, your choice, we'll do on the screen 41B. The Amidah is silent, and we do the passages for Chag HaShavuot. وما في قول ابن الهم لما شاف ما خزر نجيم بروح لما جينا برهم بقي سرا لا تعجب ولا من ما خيمتي ما ترى ضوش يا مخالك خم خاص ما خيمتي مرخم ربيم سميخ مفلين برفخ لما ترسرين مكان توش نافيا الشنيا فارمي خم قبعك بروت مدام لق مخميت وغم سميخ يشوا من مرة تبدين بروح لما خيي هم ميتي ما تاك دوش في شمخ دوش وجيم بغيم بقصر بروح نايها إلى كدوش أتهاب وقتان بيقولون وقتان وقتان وتيتو قتان بيقولون شنو بيكرشان بمسوتها بكرت عما كنا وبتتها بشمها غرب كروش علينا تهرا تابتي تلانون بيابا موادين وسمخا خاجي مزمان مسلمان اليوم خاك شوت هذا زمان متن تورتين وميكراكو داش زي خلصية مترايم אלוהינו ובתינו, יעלה ויבוא ויגיע ויראה ויצא וישמע ויפקד ויזכר ויזכרנו ויזכרנו וזיכרון אבותינו וזיכרון משה פניו וירבך וזיכרון שלום קודשך זכרון חנוכה בית ישראל לפניך, לפלטה לדבר, לכן לחסרך ממך שלום ביום חג השבועות הזה, זכרנו אלוהינו באות הבא, ופותנו באות הברכה, והושענו בו לחיים. ולדבר שרב ברחמים חוץ וכנים ברחם עלינו, והושענו כי אליך עינינו, כי המלך חנון ברחום אתה ועשיינו. אדוני אלוהינו ברחם עבדך, לחיים ושלום, ושמחה וששון, כאשר רצית בימת אלוהינו, אלוהינו באותנו, קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן בפירותיך, סבינו בטובך, ושמחנו בשבועתך, ותחר לבנו לידך באמת, והנחילנו לאלוהינו בשמחה וששון ממועדי קדשך, וישמחו בך ישראל מקדשי שמך, ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש ישראל בזמנים, רצון אלוהים בפסרי פרדתם ושבת עבודה בביתך, וזבילותם בבת תקבל ברצון ותרצון תמילת ישראל עמך. ותחזינו עינינו בשמך ציון ברחמים, ברוך מחסר של חנתו לציון מודים אנחנו לך, שתן לנו ולעולם בצורכם, וכנשנו תלו בדור, נדע לך נספר לדק, היחידים מצבים בידך ובין רבתך, ברוך לך, ננסך שבכל יום ממנו, וענבדק ותורתך שבכל תית ובק ובצהריים, ואתה פרורך, לכן כאילו תמו חסדיך, מעולם קיווינו לך, ויעל כל המפרט עמם שמך מלכן תמיד, ללמד בכלכם בגוזל הבריאות שמך באמת, האיש ותנו ותרדים נסתלה ברוך אדוני, טוב שמך לך להודות, שלום רב ישראל מחבר חושבי תיבות תשים עולם, כי אתה למלך אדון לכל אשר בתומנך, וברך חסר בכל עת וחסר בשלומך, ברוך אדוני, אמרך דמו ישראל, בשלום. And now please join Rabbi Bernie in the passage after the Amida, which is recited together to the word Redeemer, and then we'll sing Oseh Shalom.
My God, keep my tongue from evil and my lips from lies. Help me ignore those who would slander me, and let me be humble before all. Open my heart to your Torah, that I may pursue your mitzvot. Frustrate the designs of those who plot evil against me, and make nothing of their schemes. Act for the sake of your compassion, your power, your holiness, and your Torah. Answer my prayer for the deliverance of your people. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, my rock and my redeemer.
You all sing Oseh Shalom.
Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'yamru emru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'yimaru. Amen.
And the one who brings peace to his universe, bring peace to us, to all the people of Israel, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, and all who dwell on earth. And we together say,
Amen.
Now we're going to do a prayer for healing for those who are praying for people who are sick or not feeling well. When I stop, you may say the name or names of the people that you're praying for with your mics open, but then right away, please remute your microphones when you've completed your name or names. Misha berach avoteinu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah Rivka V'Leah V'yivarech v'rafei et.
Grace Sherman, Sandy Bradley,
Howard Weinberg, Barry Steve Castavana, Xander Klein, Neil Shane,
Natalie Rubin, Leonard Schuman, and Ellen Cohen.
injured in the current.
Devorah Khana Barchaya Rivka, Ann Mortellaro, Ann Rump, Angela Volante, Steve Goldberg, Bernie Gordon.
Jeff Schultz, Reverend Francisco Tolentino, Donna Claycomb, Judge Justin Phillips, and all those who were injured and with trauma from the events in Israel and Gaza.
And if everybody's finished at this time, we'll ask you to mute. And B'tog shachala Yisrael Yom Tov Hu Milizoko for Karavolavo Hashtav Karavazman Karivan Omar Amen. May God bring blessing and healing to all those people we just mentioned, all those we know of, those we may not know of, those we pray for on our personal lists, and yes, those who are dealing with the fighting and terror going on not only in Israel, but anywhere else. And we just learned today of another accident at another gathering of a group of praying Jews together in Israel. We pray for their healing, all those who suffer illness within the congregational family. May the Holy One mercifully restore them to health and to vigor, granting them physical and spiritual well-being, together with people everywhere who may be ill. Misha beirach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha beirach imotenu mikor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. And now, before we continue, we're going to stop and pray for the state of Israel because of what they are dealing with today and what's going on. I'm going to ask Rabbi Bernie to lead us in the Hebrew, and then I will lead you in the English. Microphones muted, please. Please join Rabbi Bernie.
Avinu Shebashamayim, Tzor Yisrael v'Goalo, Barechet Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Smichat Geulatenu. Hagein Aleha be'avrat chastecha, Ufros Aleha Sukat Shlomecha. Ushlach Orcha v'yamitcha l'rasheha, Sareha v'yoatzeha, v'taknein be'etza tova milfanecha. Chazek et yedei meginei Eretz Kodshenu, v'hanchileim Eloheinu Yeshua, v'yateret nitzachon te'atrein. V'natata shalom ba'aretz, v'simchat olam liyosveha, v'nomar amen.
And I'll ask everyone to join me in English. Avinu Shabashamayim, Rock and Redeemer of the people Israel, bless the state of Israel with its promise of redemption. Shielded with your love, spread over it the shelter of your peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Help them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Deliver them, crown their efforts with triumph. Bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy. And let us together say, Amen. And now at this time, we're going to go to the Kaddish Shalem. Yikaral Yikarash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Yalma divrach chirutei v'yamachmachutei b'chayechon v'yamachon v'chayechon Beit Yisrael. Bagalav izman karivi yimaru.
Amen.
Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam u'lo me'omaya.
Yiparach.
Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yiromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitala shmei l'kodesha.
Berichu.
Berichu le'elam min kol b'chata b'shirata tush b'chata b'rechmata dam b'ram b'yamav v'yimru.
Amen.
Amen. Tikabal Sultan of Oton, the Israel Kadam of Hom Divishmai Bimru.
Amen.
Amen. Yehei Shlam Rabba Min Shema Yavchaim Alein V'Al Israel Bimru.
Amen.
Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimrumal. Hu Yaseh Shalom. Aleinu V'Al Israel Bimru.
Amen.
Amen. Oh, Mimi, did you pour the wine tonight?
Yes, I did.
Mimi, it's your Hebrew birthday, isn't it?
Yes,
Happy Hebrew birthday.
thank you.
Because I know your English birthday is later.
Correct.
But thank you for doing your due diligence tonight and pouring the wine and the grape juice, and you didn't spill any, did you?
Not tonight.
All right, happy
I'm
birthday.
very careful.
I don't see Jacob here tonight. He's not here. I don't see him. So I will do the Kiddush, Rabbi. And
good.
Folks, grape juice, wine, and this one is the one for festivals. Savri maranam barabotai v'chaverai, baruch atarana Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chabanu mikol ha'am v'romamanu mikol ha'shalom v'kidshanu b'mitzvotav latiten lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'yava moadim l'simcha chagim uzmanim l'sason et yom chag hashavuot hazeh Zman matan Torateinu mikra kodesh, zecher l'tziat mitzrayim, ivanu v'achar taviotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, umoadei kodshecha b'simcha v'sason hinchaltanu, baruch atah Adonai. Mekadesh Yisrael behazmanim.
Amen.
Shechayanu together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Shechayanu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Amen.
Oh, a new bottle. All right. It's time for us to begin a beautiful tradition. As Rabbi Bernie says, it's tradition to eat cheesecake and eggplant. It's also tradition for us here at Temple Ner Tamid in Peabody to award scholarships on the first night of Shavuot, year after year. And so tonight, in order, I will call up the following people. Paula Dolan, who will be presenting a scholarship. Then I'm going to ask Steve Ring to represent the men's club tonight. Ellen Winokur will join us as well after. Adele Labarsky will be filling in tonight for Sue Callum, and then Esther Kaufman for the sisterhood. So I'm going to ask Paula Dolan if she with us, I hope.
I'm right here.
There you
And I
are.
would be happy to do that.
All right. I'm going to put
Thank
the certificate up on the screen if you want.
Sure.
All right. Let me do that. Let me find it. Okay, here it is. Ready?
Ready. Oh, look at that. Shara Zimmerman. I don't know if you're in the sanctuary or not. Oh, there you are, Shara. Well, I'd like to tell you that obviously you know you've been awarded the Arnold Dolan Scholarship. You are a remarkable young lady. Your constant helping of others is very evident. Wishing you much success and happiness as you enter a new journey at University of New Hampshire. Good luck, stay safe, and we'll hear all about what goes on at school.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right. So thank you for that, Paula. And then representing the men's club tonight, Steve Ring. Steve?
No, it's actually
Yes,
me,
I
Rabbi.
will. I will.
Oh, I'm sorry, Richard.
I will defer to Richard. I will defer to Richard.
Richard Strauss. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi. It's an honor and privilege for me to award this year's Men's Club Scholarship. The Men's Club, formerly Brotherhood, has been awarding the scholarship to deserving students at our Temple family for many years. We are able to provide these scholarships because of the success of our two major fundraisers, the auction and the raffles. And we appreciate the generosity and support of our membership and the community in these efforts. This year's recipient is Shira Zimmerman. Shira, reading through your application, our committee was very impressed by your achievements. Additionally, I had the wonderful opportunity of hearing your remarks last Friday evening. You were sensational. Shira, you come from a family that has loved you, taught you, and set a great example for you as how to live. I had the pleasure of meeting your dad's parents numerous times at our synagogue, and being a person of a certain age, I actually worked with your and appreciated the dedication of your mom's parents, Judy and Jerry, to TNT. Your mother and father have followed their parents in setting the example, and your two sisters, Hannah and Jocelyn, have continued that legacy. Now it's your turn. Given this heritage and your abilities, I am sure you will not only succeed at UNH, but in life. We look forward to watching you on this journey. Mazel tov, and please accept my virtual handshake.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Don't worry, we'll let you say a few words in a minute, Shira. Ellen Winokur, we've got you coming up next for your presentation. Ellen?
The Winokur Memorial Scholarship is in memory of Ina. Oh, wait a second. I lost my thing here. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Oh, dear.
That's all right. We're all having technical problems tonight.
Yeah, this is, I should have printed it out and I didn't. Hold on. Wait a minute. It will come up again.
Not a problem.
I'm sorry.
Why are you sorry? Things happen. This started before the service. Right, Mona?
Okay, I'm going to try this again.
All right, here we go.
The Winokur Memorial Scholarship is in memory of Ina and Wolf Winokur, Holocaust survivors, and Joseph Winokur, creator of the Yom HaShoah yellow candle that began here at Temple Ner Tamid in 1986. Joe wanted a way to remember Holocaust victims that could be meaningful and symbolic. The original Yom HaShoah candle was made with yellow wax and put in a Yortzeit glass. The label around it had a yellow star, symbolizing the yellow star that the Nazis forced the Jews to wear. Also, the label had barbed wire, symbolizing the concentration camps. This year's recipient of the Winokur Scholarship is awarded to Shira Zimmerman. Shira follows in her grandparents' and parents' footsteps of doing community service. One of her projects has been delivering Yom HaShoah candles with her father, and this year with her mother while her father was working. I have been a TNT member for many years, and this special act of community service is truly a blessing. I want to wish Shira lots of good luck as she pursues her education at UNH. Mazal Tov.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so let's also now turn things over to Adele Labarsky, filling in tonight for Sue Callum. Gee, I wonder which one you're giving out tonight.
So Sue Callum wasn't able to attend this evening, so she asked me if I would present the scholarship, the Porus Scholarship. And the Porus Scholarship, I'm proud to say, is being awarded to Shira Zimmerman. Shira, congratulations on all the hard work and determination you demonstrated to achieve this amazing accomplishment. We are also proud of you and can't wait to see all the wonderful things you're going to do. Good luck at UNH. The Porus family and your mom were very close friends growing up, and they are so excited that you are receiving the scholarship. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Shira, before I turn things over to Sisterhood for their presentations tonight, do you have any words that you wish to say?
Yeah, I would like to thank everyone for these scholarships. I'm very grateful for my friends and family, and I can't wait for the next 4 years of college.
All right, Mazel Tov to you. Make sure you keep us up to date. What's going on? All right, like you told me you would do Friday night. We're so proud of you. Mazel Tov to you. All right, I don't have the next ones for displaying on the screen, but I'm turning things over at this time to Esther Kaufman. Esther. I think. There she is.
Ted, unmute. It gives me great pleasure to be able to present the Sisterhood Scholarship this evening. Sisterhood Scholarship is given to a student who is completing their freshman year in college, has good academic standing, and whose parents are members of the Temple, Sisterhood, or Men's Club. The applicants are asked to write a 500 to 750 word essay answering the question, how did your Jewish education influence your Jewish involvement during your freshman year in college? This year, we are presenting 2 scholarships to 2 very deserving young women, Sophie Cohen and Amanda Lewis. Although they are both attending different schools, their freshman experiences are quite similar. In their essays, both Sophie, who is attending Vanderbilt University, and Amanda, who is attending Ithaca College, express the importance of their Jewish identity in their lives. In their college search, they specifically sought out schools where they could find an active Jewish social and religious life. For Sophie, her involvement in the Vanderbilt Jewish community began early in the school year with her attendance at Hillel's Rosh Hashanah services. Sophie has continued to maintain an active involvement in Hillel services and observing Jewish holidays, including attending a Passover Seder at school. To quote Sophie, "These services are my way of holding on to the traditions I know and keeping them close to my heart as I become more independent." In addition to attending services, Sophie has become active in several of the Hillel boards on campus. The first-year students of Hillel board provided her with a forum for exploring how she values Judaism and expanding her interpretation of Judaism to other aspects of her life. She also participated in an Israel advocacy group and a Hillel membership and programming board. Both of these boards helped her to meet new people and learn more about Israel. To sum up her Jewish involvement during her freshman year, Sophie wrote, "Even during this interesting time of COVID, I was still able to involve myself in events at Hillel and continue exploring my Jewish identity. I am happy that I was able to continue keeping traditions I normally would have kept at home, and to be able to have opportunities that allowed me to meet other Jewish students and explore my Jewish identity further. Because of my Jewish upbringing and the Jewish education I received, I felt prepared to continue learning about Judaism and thoroughly enjoyed meeting others who are doing the same. I've enjoyed remaining active in the community and look forward to the same involvement in the rest of my time in college." Like Sophie, one of the first organizations Amanda became involved with on campus was her school's Hillel. This was somewhat challenging for Amanda since she was forced to spend the first semester of her college career taking online classes from home when Ithaca College shut down their campus completely due to COVID-19. Despite the complications, Amanda still managed to find a way to become involved with other Jewish students. After becoming friendly with another Jewish student that she met during a Zoom breakout room in one of her classes, they formed a 6-person team for virtual trivia nights hosted by the Ithaca College Hillel each week. Through these virtual trivia nights, Amanda was able to meet other Jewish students even while she was studying from home. When she arrived on campus for the spring semester, her involvement with Hillel continued. Maintaining a connection to her Jewish identity has been comforting to Amanda while transitioning from high school to college during the COVID-19 pandemic. She will continue her Jewish involvement this summer in a 5-week-long course in the Onward Israel Camp Counselor Internship Program, followed by serving as a counselor at Camp Pembroke. Amanda summarized her Jewish involvement during her freshman year by stating, "All in all, I could not have asked for a better freshman year in terms of my Jewish life and involvement at school. I plan to become even more active within the Ithaca College Jewish community. I can't wait to see where the next 3 years take me and my Jewish identity." Both girls have made strong statements about how important their Jewish identity is in their lives. How lucky we are to have young women like Amanda and Sophie to represent the Jewish people now and in the future. Sophie and Amanda, the Sisterhood of Temple Ner Tamid, is impressed with your endeavors and is pleased to be able to support your continued success with these scholarships. And Rabbi, I have the scholarships, the certificates. So this is Sophie and Amanda, and you will receive these in the mail. And we want to wish congratulations to you and your families.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do either one of you want to say anything at all? Do you have any things to say or?
Just thank you so much to the sisterhood. I'm really happy to be sharing the scholarship with Amanda. And yeah.
Yeah, I'd also like to say thank you to the sisterhood, and I look forward to the next 3 years, and thank you for making that possible.
You're very welcome.
All right, so with that, I'm going to just put that one more spotlight on the folks that are being awarded tonight. Look at them. Aren't they just absolutely amazing? We're so proud of you. Mazel tov to you. Just keep doing great things and keep making Temple Ner Tamid family, the mishpacha that you belong to, make us proud. You really are. And let's hope that this next year will be maskless, no masks, no virtual, but in class and do your thing. But you got to stay in touch with us, guys. Okay. All right. We're going to get that college blog going as well on our website. Mazel tov to you guys. You're great. We wish you the best. All right. I'm going to take you out of the spotlight and stop embarrassing you all. And we're going to Rabbi Bernie, who will now lead us in the Aleinu. We'll turn to page 51 and we will rise for the Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabech l'adon hakol latek gidula liyotze bereshit shelo asanu kriyei haratzot velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chalkenu kahem begar aleinu k'chol hamonam v'anachnu karim u'mishtachavim u'modim lefnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Notei Shamayim v'Yosei Aretz, Moshe v'Yikaro b'Shamayim Mimal, Ushkinatu zo, B'Gavhei Meromim, Hu Eloheinu ein od, Emet Malkeinu Hebezulato, Kakatu b'Torato, Yedatayam biyadatayam Hashivota Helevavecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim Bashamayim Imal Mi'al ha'aretz Mitachad Ein od Okay, Nicole. Kakacho b'Torah Adonayim loch li'olam ba'ed v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech ha'koretz bayom ha'u yeh Adonai echad u'shema Oshema echad, Oshema echad.
And now for those of you who are reciting the mourner's Kaddish, if you are saying Kaddish tonight for a yortzeit or a loved one, if you wish to say the name of the person you're remembering at this time, you may open your mics and do so at this time.
Bennett Kaufman.
Sylvia Toby.
Robert Sherman.
And may the faith that binds us to our loved ones be a continuing source of comfort as we now invite those mourning or observing a yortzeit to now rise and join me with the words of the mourner's Kaddish. You may open your mics. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Bi'alma, Bi'vrach Chilutei, Bi'amlich Malchutei, B'chayechon, B'yomechon, B'chayei Kol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, Ubizman Kariv, Yemru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach, La'olam U'lomei Omaya, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yipar, Yitromam, Yitaseh, V'yithadar, V'yithaleh, V'yithalal, Shemei D'Kudisha, V'richu, Le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbachata v'nechamata, Da'amiran v'yalma v'yimru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu li'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, Amen. Oseh shalom v'ramav, ya'aseh shalom aleinu li'al kol Yisrael v'yimru,
Amen.
Amen ve'amen. We'll ask everybody to mute the microphones, turn things over now to Adele Labarsky, our president, for some announcements. Adele?
Erev Tov and Chag Sameach, everybody. Rabbi Bernie and Rabbi Perlman, Yesha Koach. I want to really wish Mazel Tov to Amanda, Shira, and Sophie. You know, this weekend has been so wonderful. We started with Friday night with our students leading the service and graduating our high school student, Shira Zimmerman. And then this morning we had an outdoor celebration of our school with all of our children, their families, and it was just absolutely wonderful. The kids talked about things that they loved about Hebrew school. They got ice cream for Shavuos, of course, and it was just a very wonderful celebration. We were totally outside, and the kids had the whole parking lot to do what they wanted to do. If you come up to the temple, you'll see this beautiful works of art that they did in front of the bricks. It's with sidewalk chalk, and so check it out. It's really beautiful. And then this evening to honor our graduate and our freshmen in college. So it was just a wonderful way to see what our future looks like. So yasher koach to all of our children and our families. Services tomorrow morning are at 9 o'clock on Zoom. We will be joining with Temple B'nai Abraham. Tomorrow evening, services will be at 7 p.m. They will both be in person and on Zoom. Again, if you don't have the service will not be on the screen. So hopefully you have downloaded the service by now or you had asked the temple for a siddur. On Tuesday morning, and tomorrow night we'll be reciting Yizkor, as we will be doing also on Tuesday mornings. Tuesday morning services are at 9 a.m. again with Temple B'nai Abraham. There will be no evening minyan on Tuesday. Wednesday evening after the minyan, we have our temple general meeting. It will be on Zoom. And then Friday evening, the hope is this will be the beginning of good things to come, that we will be in person and on Zoom on Friday nights and Shabbat mornings going forward. That's the hope. Of course, things can change. You never know. We are being very cautious. We are following CDC guidelines. We are following guidelines given by the state of Massachusetts. It has very specific guidelines for houses of worship. And so that is what we are following. So I am hoping that all of you will join us either on Zoom or in person. We're being safe, we're being careful, and Chag Sameach.
All right, so we're going to conclude. Thank you for that, Adele. We're going to conclude with Yigdal, and then for those of you that want to stay and learn, which is appropriate for Shavuot, it's something that we do. Tikkun Leil Shavuot tonight. As I said, we're going to be talking with Rabbi Foreman tonight, learning about the 10 Commandments, and we're going to basically find out why are they important. Rabbi Bernie, I'm sure, could probably tell you why they're important, but Rabbi Foreman has a very interesting perspective on it as well. So for those of you that wish to stay afterwards, while you're eating your cheesecake and your blintzes or your eggplant, so feel free to continue to stay with us after the service. And then when that is over, Rabbi, I understand that apple juice is part of the appropriateness of Shavuot, right? We could have some apple juice with a L'chaim Tovim after our study tonight. So we will do Yigdal, page 53, and we'll do my favorite Yom Tov melody. Yigdal Elohim chai v'yishtabach nimsa v'yeinei El Metziuto, Echad v'yein yachid ki yichudo, Ne'lam v'gam en sof le'yachduto.
Ein lo jemud haguf, v'yein haguf, lo na'arok elav kedushato. Kadmon l'chol davar asher nivra, Rishon v'yein reshit l'reshito.
Ino Adon Olam v'chol notzar, Yoreh gedulato u'malchuto, Shafan nevuato netano, El anshe segulato v'tiparto.
Lo kam b'Yisrael k'Moshe od navi u'mabid et emunato, Torat emet natan le'amo el yad v'yo neman beito.
Lo yachal Yifa'el v'lo yamir dato, Le'olamim lezulato, Sofer v'yodei yasitarenu, Mabit lesof davar bekadmato.
Gomer ish chesed kimifalo notein l'rasha ra kirishato yishlach l'ketz yamin mishichenu liftot mechakei yeshuato.
Meitim Michael Barov Chasto Baruch Hadei Shem Tehilato Meitim Michael Barov Chasto Baruch Hadei Shem Tehilato. All right, that will conclude the service. And now we will begin Tikkun Leil Shavuot. Rabbi, would you like to do the blessing for study?
Absolutely. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. Sit back, folks. Relax. And let's learn.
Hi, my name is Rabbi David Foreman. Today we'll be discussing the Ten Commandments and why they might still be relevant after 3,000 years, and we'll begin with a little story. You're just boarding this long-haul flight, and there's this guy, Joe, who sits down next to you, and he's so happy to meet a proud Jew. He says, "You wouldn't mind if I ask you a couple questions, would you?" And you're stuck with Joe for the rest of the flight, and he says, "If you have to boil it down for me, just like in a few sentences, what would you say your religion's all about? Nothing complicated, just a couple sentences." My religion is about love, and whenever I think about love, I just get so spiritual feeling. It's just the greatest thing in the world. You Jews, what's your religion about? So, you're thinking about this for a while, and we just learned there were all these laws in the Torah, these commands, so you figure, well, I got laws. And Joe looks kind of puzzled. His religion over here is all about love, and your religion's all about laws. And if you think about laws and love sounds a lot more exciting than laws. Joe says to you, well, I don't get this really. What would be so spiritual about laws? How does that even work? So what I want to talk about today is what would you say to Joe? How would you boil down Judaism in just a couple sentences? I think one way we can envision perhaps a better conversation with Joe would be to kind of search for an organizing principle within Judaism. Is there any natural, organic thing around which all of these myriad of 613 commandments revolves around? And the first thing that comes to mind is that there's an idea in the Jewish tradition that the Ten Commandments, which according to tradition was given to Moses at Sinai in that grand event, fire and light show at the mountain, that the Ten Commandments are a kind of table of contents for the entire Torah. There's only 10 commands, and there's 613 commands throughout the whole Torah. But the logic in kind of giving those 10 commands on a special revelation on top of a mountain is because somehow they're the organizing principle for the entire Torah. And this is a very attractive notion, because if there really is an organizing principle, if the 10 Commandments really are some kind of table of contents for the whole Torah, then you have a system. If you have a system, you don't have 613 random laws anymore. An organized system can be spiritual, it can be meaningful, and it's not really 613 things. To give you an example, take a song, Rockabye Baby on the Treetop. If you imagine somebody who didn't know that song, how do you teach them Rockabye Baby on the Treetop? So you could start, you'd say, well, everybody listen closely, A sharp minor, B flat, C sharp, D major, and you could teach them 75 notes. You'd say, now sing after me, and no one would be able to do it. Or you could sit there and actually sing the tune. If you sing the tune a couple times, people would get it. They'd get the notes. And I imagine you gave this class on singing Rockabye Baby, and then people filed out of the class, and somebody said, so what'd you learn today? So they said, well, I learned Rockabye Baby. Imagine somebody said, well, how did you learn Rockabye Baby? There were like 155 notes in that song. How could you possibly memorize all those notes? Obviously, it was one song. 155 notes become one song. If you look at each of these individual notes, they actually form something which is elegant. It has aesthetic qualities. The Torah has all of that, so it's a very interesting possibility. When Joe says laws don't seem very spiritual to me, right? Laws is not as good as love. Well, it depends what you mean by laws. If laws are a system, if laws are a song, if they're designed to achieve certain ends and how it all fits together, well, then you could be looking at something spiritual. So what I want to do is explore this question with you today, which is, are the Ten Commandments, in fact, a table of contents? So I think when most of us think of the Ten Commandments, we don't really think of a document that actually means much to us at all. And when I say that, I don't mean that we don't actually respect it. I think we have may have a great deal of respect for it as a symbol of Judaism. And we revere the Ten Commandments. But just because we revere the Ten Commandments doesn't mean we actually relate to it. The more you revere something, it seems to have nothing to do with you. It's just something very big and Gothic that is a foundation of culture. So the question is, that's the way it's supposed to be, or is the Ten Commandments actually supposed to mean something to me? In the last 30 days, how many moral dilemmas were you confronted with for which you looked to the Ten Commandments for guidance? The answer is not that many. If you haven't been considered killing anybody in the last few days, or wasn't on your to-do list, the Ten Commandments talk to you. Is it actually talking to you? I guess that's one of the main questions I want to ask here, is this document actually relevant to me in any kind of deep spiritual sort of way? I think most of us would kind of say no. To deal with this question, I want to go back to sort of Joe on the plane for a moment and suggest that Joe might have a second question for you. Well, if you think about it, though, Joe says any particular narrative in the Bible is very short. Take the Tower of Babel story. The Tower of Babel story is actually very short in the Torah. If you look at it, it ends in verse 9. 9 verses is not very big. This is the whole story, If you imagine what the story would look like if it happened 50 years ago, it's a big deal. You'd have a lot more than 9 verses. So Joe says, if you believe the Bible is deep, it's too short. How are you supposed to say anything deep in 9 sentences? And I don't care how smart you are, Joe says. I don't think God could do it. I don't think anybody could do it. So how is it that you say the Bible is deep? Well, what really is the answer to that? So I want to give you a possible way of dealing with Joe's second question over here, and it relates to this whole idea of how the Ten Commandments might relate to us. Think of it with an analogy, living space in Manhattan. Imagine you were really rich and, money was no object, and you want a lot of living space in Manhattan, and you tell your real estate agent you don't care how much it costs, can you get it? So you say, well, I want this beautiful ranch home in Manhattan. Well, I don't care how much money you're willing to spend, you're simply not going to find that in Manhattan. So if you have a smart real estate agent, they say, well, look, I can give you a lot of space to live, but it's not going to look like a ranch house. How do you have to get it in Manhattan? And the answer is, you get it by building up. It's going to be something like a high-rise condo that you get your space. And there's layers. And I can give you an apartment with 3 layers in it. And that's how you can have a lot of space. So if you analogize that to text, maybe that there's layers in text as well. A short document can have a lot of information if the text has layers of meaning. And maybe the Bible does that. Maybe there are such things as texts that have those kinds of layers. You can have a tremendous amount of meaning if all these layers sort of interact with each other. Now, that sounds very ethereal. Let me try and make it a little bit more concrete for you and talk about some texts that sort of have these layers. One way you can discern layers of meaning in any document is to really realize that any document sort of has 2 elements to it. And both of those elements contribute to meaning. So if I'm looking for the meaning of a document, most of us look directly to content, but we ignore the fact that there's something else that tells us meaning, and it's sort of backhanded, and that is the structure of the document. Now by structure, I don't really mean anything fancy. I just mean just sort of very obvious things that contribute to understanding the document. So for example, if you're looking at the Declaration of Independence. So there's structure, way up here, you got a title in big bold print. So there's this big drop cap over here that tells you that you're beginning things. And you've got over here these indentations, and the indentations mean something. They tell us that paragraphs are beginning, and there's smaller units, right? There's periods, there's commas. Really, all this punctuation is really ways in which the author communicates not just content, but structure, how it sort of fits. And the structure is something we don't really pay attention to. Nobody thinks about the periods and commas and paragraphs in the document, but the structure is very important in understanding the meaning of the document. There can be meaning layered into structure. What I want to argue to you is that there's that kind of fascinating structure in the Ten Commandments itself, in this document over here, a very simple looking document. But if you look at it, there's layers of structure and there's meta layers of structure. We're going to try and discern those. And each layer contributes vastly more meaning than the other layer. So what you have is a relatively little content. There's not many words over here in this document, but there's a tremendous amount of meaning, a tremendous amount of information layered into it. how do we discern the layers of the document? So I want to challenge you before you go on, just stop, take a look at the text of the Ten Commandments and just ask yourself, what are the most obvious structural features here? The first layer is a very obvious piece of structure. What obvious structural feature just jumps right out at me? And then, as you see that, take a look for a second layer of structure, a third layer of structure. What are those layers? Let's just start with the first one. What's the first layer of structure? So we just take a quick look at a visual representation of the Ten Commandments. The most obvious thing that stands out is just the fact that there are 2 tablets. But it doesn't have to be that way. If there was only 1 tablet, no one would have been terribly surprised. The fact that there's 2 seems to imply that there has to be 2 categories. The only question is, what are those categories? If you just look at the Ten Commandments, the first side, these are basically relationships between people and God, and the second side is really about relationships between people and other people. It just seems to be true. But the question is the first side really about relationships between people and God? Let's just kind of go through them. The first side is, I'm the Lord your God. That's commandment number 1, and that's clearly relationship between us and God. And we go to commandment number 2, do not have any other gods before me, don't take my name in vain. These 2 are also about relationships between man and God. Honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. The Sabbath is going to be something which God wants us to honor. So, so far we've got 4 commands, and all of these are about relationships between people and God. And finally we get to the 5th and last command, and it's honor your father and mother. And that seems to be the fly in the ointment, right? Because last time I checked, your parents are people. And so what are they doing on this side if this side is relationships between people and God? So what we really need to find is some sort of common denominator between God on the one hand, which is the first 4, and parents on the other hand. I think the answer really is that we often think of God as our creator, but God is actually just one creator because we have human creators also. So if you think about it, the first tablet is really about what we might call vertical relationships. If you imagine kind of a modern art painting, if you put a person down at the bottom, you draw the parents on top, or you draw God on top. And that's because we intuit that both parents and God are authority figures. We owe everything to them, and therefore we're simply not their equals. So we have relationships between authority figures on the one hand, we might call vertical relationships, on tablet number 1. And that suggests that what tablet number 2 is really about is horizontal relationships, or relationships with peers. So this really is kind of the first layer of structure, which just emerges from the fact that there's 2 tablets. The next layer of structure, I think, comes from the fact that each of the 2 tablets just happens to have 5 commands on it. What does that imply? Maybe there's some kind of correspondence between the 2 sides. Maybe all of these kind of link to each other. Maybe they correspond. What I want you to think about is, why does it matter if there's a correspondence between these 2 sides? I want to come back to the Joe on the plane question, which is basically in 2 sentences what we say Judaism is about. And that question was really asked many, many years ago in a famous story of the Talmud. A man by the name of Hillel, great sage of Talmudic times, and a prospective convert, somebody who is seeking conversion to Judaism, comes up to Hillel and says, if I stand on 1 foot, could you teach me the entire Torah? I'm willing to learn everything, but you gotta give it to me while I stand on 1 foot. And most of the time when we think about this story, we think of it kind of as a practical joke, but the one question which a prospective convert has a right to ask is, help me understand what it's all about. Hillel gave him an answer. That which you hate, don't do to your fellow. That's the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. One of the things we often confuse it with is something Rabbi Akiva said. Love your neighbor as yourself. Hillel didn't actually say that. And one of the interesting questions is why. Love your neighbor as yourself is actually a verse in the Torah. What Hillel says, that which you hate, don't do to your fellow. That's the whole Torah, the rest is commentary. It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah. And one of the questions you might ask is, what's the source? Where did it even come up with that? If you even compare these 2 things, there's something appealing about what Rabbi Akiva says. It's about love. Love is compelling. Love is appealing. Love seems stronger. It seems to be demanding more of people. It's actually a positive thing. You think about what Hillel says, it's actually kind of negative. It doesn't really require anything. You don't have to love at all. If I do all this, have I really loved you? Where did Hillel come up with this? Why did he come up with this? Hillel didn't make this up. And if we understand the 10 Commandments from a structural angle, we will see the power in what it was that Hillel was trying to say. So let's come back and try to do that. We talked about one element of structure, horizontal relationships, vertical relationships. I want to talk about a second element of structure now. The notion that perhaps the 2 sides of the tablets mirror each other. What it actually means is that in a certain kind of profound way, there's really only 5 commands, not 10. In other words, these things are the same idea. It's just that this expresses itself in the world of man's relationship with his creators. And this over here, it's that idea expressed in a different world, in man's relationship with his peers. So the reason why there's 10 commands is because there's 10 expressions of 5 fundamental principles. Those express themselves in the 2 basic kind of worlds that we live in. We live in our world with our creators, we live in our world with our peers. I can find the common denominator in each of these commands and be able to extrapolate it to the basic principle. What's the line that links this idea on one side of the commandments to this idea on the other side? What happens is that the Torah both gives me a sense of relative certainty in trying to interpret it and understanding what's going on, and also gives me a sense of meaning. There's something deeper than each one of these commands. That's the principle that underlies them. So at this point, what we're really arguing is that there are only 5 basic principles in the 10 Commandments. There are 10 discrete laws, but 5 basic principles that govern them. And that's because each one of these principles expresses itself in 2 slightly different spheres, in a sphere of vertical relationships and a sphere of horizontal relationships. So the idea will look a little bit different depending on what sphere it's expressing itself in. And the way, of course, that you identify the principles we suggested is that you look for the common denominator. What is it that's driving each of these? What unseen principle seems to motivate both of these commands? So let's try that with the first one of these, right? The first command on each tablet, which is I am the Lord your God on tablet number 1. Do not murder on tablet number 2. And it's almost like you could express it algebraically. You might say that what failing to recognize God is within vertical relationships, murder would be in horizontal relationships. So how does that equation play out? A clue, I think, comes from the idea that killing a human being is a big deal in the first place. When we intuit there's something special about human beings, the language that the Torah uses to describe that human beings are created in the image of God. That indeed is the rationale that the Torah gives for the great consequences that attaches to killing someone. Human beings are special because they're created, so to speak, in the image of God. So if you come back to our 2 commands, on the one hand, I am the Lord your God on the first tablet, and the command prohibiting murder on the second tablet, one of the interesting things about this is that, who are you murdering? You're murdering someone created in the image of God. And who is it on the other side that we're commanded to recognize? We're commanded to recognize God himself. And of course, the common denominator here is God. So does that begin to give us a clue? I think it does. So let's continue and try to flesh out this equivalency a little bit more. So let's ask, why do people murder other people in the first place? If I lie awake at night and I say to myself, my life is better off without Joe in the world, at that point, I have a challenge in front of me, which is maybe I'll just kill Joe. Maybe I'll murder him. Now, if you think about that for a moment, that leads to some very interesting questions with respect to our creators. Could we imagine somebody saying, my life is better off without my creator in the world? In other words, if we transpose this into vertical relationships instead of horizontal relationships, it's not my life would be better off without Joe in the world. Maybe someone might say my life is better off without my creator in the world. Could we imagine someone saying that? And yes, we could. You could imagine it might be more convenient to live without my creator in the world. Well, if that were the case, if I felt that way, what would my challenge be? I couldn't murder God. Next best thing I could do is I could ignore him. If you think about murder and ignoring, there's actually something very similar about the two. They're 2 different ways of getting rid of someone, right? There's an objective way, and that is when you kill them. And of course, there is a subjective way, which is when you ignore them. Either way, I am getting rid of somebody. So there's a very interesting equivalence that the Torah seems to be setting up between, murder on the one hand and ignoring on the other. They're really the same kinds of things. So if we come back to the first principle that seems to emerge, the idea that when it is inconvenient to have somebody else around, whether that someone else is my creator or whether that someone else is a peer, do not give in to the urge to get rid of them. Rather, recognize the existence of the other. Deal with them. And that brings us up to commandment number 2 on each side, which is going to be, do not have any other gods before me, and do not commit adultery. And when we think about the equivalence between them, if you think about adultery, somebody invading a committed relationship between a married man and woman, think about the worship of idolatry, there really is something common about them. What adultery is in horizontal relationships, idolatry is in vertical relationships. To adulterate means to mix in something where it doesn't belong. There's two kinds of sacred relationships. In the horizontal realm, we would call that marriage. In the vertical realm, we would call that worship. These are very, very exclusive relationships. And when I bring something that doesn't belong, I can betray that relationship and destroy it. So commandment number 2 is don't do that. And that brings us to commandment number 3. Do not take my name in vain and do not steal. How would you see the common denominator there? The hint that I would give you is the rabbinic interpretation of do not steal is very interesting. The way the rabbis interpret that as specifically a command against kidnapping. It means to take the human body. And what that seems to do is create an interesting kind of equivalence between the human body somehow in God's name. I think that mystery will give us an insight into what principle 3 is. And an interesting clue, I think, comes from the Hebrew word for don't take God's name in vain. Interestingly, in Hebrew the word is lo tisa, which doesn't really translate as don't take. The word tisa actually means to lift up or to carry off. It looks much more like carrying. It's almost as if God's name is being visualized as if some sort of tangible thing that you could pick up and carry off. What does it feel like when you come home and you see the policeman outside your home? You see all the yellow police tape. You see your house broken into, the shattered glass. And almost universally people will say it feels like you're being violated. And being violated is normally something that we talk about in terms of ourselves. Rape is a violation. Our body is attacked. But what the Ten Commandments is suggesting really is that you can be violated another way too. You can violate a relationship by taking somebody's precious things. And this really gets to the commonality between the rabbinic interpretation of stealing, which, as we mentioned before, is kidnapping, and taking God's name in vain. Kidnapping, of course, is taking a person's body. If you think about your body really is your most precious possession. Normally we think about possessions, we think about, the money you have, the car you have. We don't really think about your body as a possession. You think your body is actually the thing that owns the money, the chains to the car. But in fact, that's not really true. And one of the greatest proofs that's not really true is the expression that we have for our body, which is we call it my body. My body means there's a me that has the body. My body, it's the way my sense of self gets expressed in this world, and therefore it's the most important thing that I have. It's absolutely invaluable. Well, if you think about it, what a person's body is in horizontal relationships, God's name is in vertical relationships. God doesn't have a body. How does God's selfhood express itself in the world? Through his name. So in other words, there's sort of two expressions of self in the world. There's an abstract expression of self, which is name. There's a concrete expression of self, which is body. And the third principle really is, when it comes to these very precious possessions that we have, don't violate another by misappropriating those. And that brings us to the fourth principle over here, and that is honor the Sabbath, keep it holy on the one hand, and don't bear false witness against your fellow. So let's talk about why it is that we honor the Sabbath. According to Jewish tradition, honoring the Sabbath actually is an act of testimony. We're resting in recognition of the fact that God rested after having created the world. We're telling the truth about God, about the most important thing we know about God, which is that he's the creator of our world. And again, if you do the analogy, what testimony in court is with peers, with horizontal relationships, keeping the Sabbath is with vertical relationships. It's telling the truth about somebody's actions. And if you don't tell the truth about someone's actions, you violate them. Why? Because actions are sort of also a possession. Actions are something that we own. It's part of what makes us who we are. When you lie about that, it's like identity theft. You're taking some of me away from me. It's not like you're actually killing me, right? It's much more abstract than that. It's not even like you're stealing from me and attacking my possessions, but you're sort of attacking my reputation. And what this fourth principle gets to is this idea of safeguarding reputation or safeguarding acts. And with that, we get to the fifth principle, perhaps the hardest to see of all. Do not covet in peer relationships. Honor your father and mother in vertical and creator relationships. Somehow there's a correspondence there. What is the commonality there? It's almost like if you have a certain personality flaw, it will express itself in dishonoring your parents in creator relationships. It will express itself as coveting in peer relationships. What is that flaw? What principle emerges from these two commands? So we're up to the fifth principle, and we've been trying to discern it from the two commands in vertical relationships and horizontal relationships that seem to express the principle. Honor your parents on the one hand, don't covet on the other. So I think the question we really need to ask is, why is it that people covet? Why is it that they so desperately want these things that other people have? Where does that come from in the human psyche? And the Torah gives us a hint. If you look at the language that the Ten Commandment couches the command not to covet in, there's something very obsessive about the language. It doesn't just say, lo tachmod beit re'echa, don't covet the house of your friend. It keeps on going. Don't covet his house, don't covet his wife, don't covet his manservant, don't covet his maidservant, don't covet everything that he has. And it gets extremely specific in all these things, one thing after another thing. It's this veritable laundry list and stuff. It's like you feel like saying, I get it already. Why over and over again? And the Torah seems to, I think, suggest that there's something obsessive about the nature of coveting. Where does that come from? What lie am I telling myself that I think that I'm just going to be happy if I have all these things, and then it never really works? So let's try and play this thought experiment. I call it the coveting game. Imagine you're coveting something. Here's your friend Joe, right? And it turns out that Joe has this beautiful widescreen TV, and you've decided that there is nothing you want more in life than Joe's widescreen TV. So you're desperate about this, and you keep on asking Joe for it, and Joe just won't sell it to you, he won't give it to you. And every time you go over to Joe's house, you just look at this widescreen TV, and you get down. You think, why can't I have Joe's widescreen TV? Eventually, you go and you seek therapy for this. So you're in therapy with the therapist, and she's talking to you about coveting, about your obsession. And finally she says to you, we could just go to Best Buy, just down the block, and I could buy you a widescreen TV with all this money that you're spending. Why don't we just go do that? Would that solve my coveting issue? I think the answer is, what essentially I really want is I want to be Joe. I don't want to be me. And the great lie I'm telling myself is that if I can just get enough of Joe's things, then I can somehow crawl out of this terrible space, which I call my own life, and somehow feel as if I'm occupying a different role in the world. I'm occupying Joe's role in the world. Of course, it never really works. I never really feel like Joe. So I feel like I need the next thing, and I need the next thing. Then I'll feel like Joe. Now, if in horizontal relationships I was given to coveting, what would my vertical relationships look like? Think about your parents. Why would you honor your parents? The reason why you honor your parents is because they gave you everything you have. But what if everything you had wasn't good enough? What if they gave me the wrong education? What if they gave me the wrong genes, the wrong DNA? What if I viewed life itself, that great gift that they gave me, as not a great gift at all? There would be no reason to give them honor. I would be resentful against them. So if the Torah is saying don't covet on the one hand and honor your parents on the other hand, what it's really saying is don't abrogate yourself. You don't need to seek out someone's life and try to be Joe. And your parents did give you something immensely valuable for which you are eternally in debt to them, and that is your life. That life is worthwhile. When you honor your parents, what are you really saying? You're saying the gift they gave you was meaningful. The life that they gave you was incredibly valuable. There is no greater act of self-affirmation than honoring your parents. When you honor your parents, you're actually affirming your existence. The fifth principle is recognize yourself. You do have something to honor your parents for. You don't need to covet and try to occupy somebody else's place in life. What we've seen to this point is 2 layers of structure. The first layer, 2 tablets. The second layer, horizontal, the mirror. 5 principles that emerge from 10 commandments. But there's a third layer of structure, the vertical relationship between the 5 principles. Can we discern any relationship in these as we go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5? When we add up these principles, they're not just a bunch of random principles, they relate to each other. How is it that we understand the nature of the connections between these 5 principles? Take a look at principle number 1 and principle number 5. See any connection between them? Don't do away with the other is how the 10 Commandments begins. Don't do away with yourself is how the 10 Commandments end. And that brings us, I think, to the connection between the first 4 principles in the 10 Commandments. What the 10 Commandments are really saying is don't violate them. There's different levels of violation, because there's different orbits of self. The first level of self is your body. Don't violate another person by destroying them. This is the prohibition against murder on the one hand, or subjective killing, ignoring. But there's another level of self. Don't violate marriage, idolatry, this sort of sacred relationship. Don't violate that either. Don't violate possessions. It's also through robbery that I can feel violated. And then there's something else that I own that I can feel violated, which is if you take away my acts from me, sort of identity theft, if you destroy my reputation, testify truthfully about who I am. All of these things are about non-violation, sort of 4 concentric levels of self. What's the 5th command about? The 5th command is about not violating me. At a certain point, your brain is going to kick in, and you're going to say, if everybody else is so special that they can't be violated by me in any of these different kinds of ways, if everybody else has that little spark of godliness which makes them so precious as to not be violated, maybe I have it too. And that, I think, is the kernel from which self-esteem grows. Which brings us back to Hillel. Hillel tries to boil down the entire Torah to one principle. That which is hateful to you, don't do to your friend. And one of the interesting questions about Hillel is there is no verse in the Torah that says, that which is hateful to you, don't do to your friend. Where did he get this from? Did he just make it up out of thin air? And I think the answer is he actually extrapolated it from the 10 Commandments. Because if you look at the 10 Commandments the way we've looked at it, when you boil it down to those 5 principles, you boil those 5 principles down to one idea, what is that idea? The idea basically is, don't treat others the way you wouldn't want to be treated. You wouldn't want to be violated. You wouldn't want your essential self to be violated. You wouldn't want your sacred relationships to be violated. You wouldn't want your money to be violated. You wouldn't want your reputation to be violated. At all of these various different levels of self, we want our integrity. We don't want to be invaded. Don't do to others what you don't want done to you is another way of saying, don't violate people. And if you think about that principle, you can really boil it down to one word. What is that word? That word, I don't believe, is love. That's a different principle. That was Rabbi Akiva. Love your neighbor as yourself. Non-violation, we would more easily identify, I think, not as love, but as respect. If I don't violate you, I haven't yet loved you, but I have respected you. What does it mean to respect someone? Whether that someone is God, a vertical relationship, or whether that someone is a human being, a horizontal relationship. It means not treating them as a thing that I can use for my own purposes, as something that I can invade, that I can mold to my will. Both God in vertical relationships and people in horizontal relationships are incredibly special. God is God, and human beings are Tselem Elokim, God-like. You don't take God-like things and mold them into what you want them to be. They are what they are, and what they are needs to be respected. What does it look like to relate to one of these beings without respect? What does it look like to relate to God without respect? It looks like idolatry. In idolatry, what are you worshiping? You're worshiping a thing. And the relationship that you build with an idol is worthy of a thing. The rain god, the sun god, the moon god, the totem pole. I impute some power to this thing, and then I bargain with it. I try to appease it. I try to get something out of it to make my life better. And the sum total of my relationship with the thing is reduced to what I can get out of it. We can relate to people that way as well. What can I get out of you? If you're my colleague, maybe I can get a reference for my next job interview. If you're my date, maybe I can get a trophy wife. If you're my super popular friend, maybe I can get social status. I can manipulate you, because the only thing that really counts in this world is me. Everything else is just a tool to make me better. That is one way to view the world, but that's not the Jewish way to view the world. What does it look like when you don't treat them as things? What does it look like when you recognize the inherent godliness of God, and when you recognize that every human being carries a little spark of godliness within them? When you relate to people this way, the way is cleared for a new kind of relationship. And this brings us to Rabbi Akiva, a relationship we can actually rightfully call love. Love comes in 2 varieties, what we might call true love, and what we can also call love's imposter. Let's take a minute to elaborate what that would mean. What is love? What's common to what I'm going to call true love and love's imposter is that love means the creation of a we out of 2 eyes, Anytime you love, you're coming together with someone in some sort of way. In romantic love, that union is most obvious. Two people actually literally come together physically, emotionally, spiritually, but really in any kind of love relationships, that's true. We create relationships, we unify with others, we join them when we join their team in a company, when we make friends with someone and create a kind of we out of that relationship. But anytime you can join in two ways. You can join with respect, or you can join without respect. When you join with respect, you honor the two I's that are the cornerstones of the we. When you join without respect, the we crushes one or both of the two I's. What does it look like when a we crushes an I? It can look like a lot of things. In romantic love, it can look like domestic violence. I look at you, and I see any shred of independence that you manifest as betraying our relationship. How come you have your own friends? We have our friends. Why do you need your own money? We have our money. Why do you need your own time to yourself? What about us? Pretty soon you have nowhere left to breathe. All there is us, and the us strangles the you. Or in a regular friendship, you need to be around me all the time. I need to be around you all the time. Or when you join my team, what if the rite of passage to join my team humiliates you, makes you into a nothing? What if to get into my fraternity, you need to be hazed, you need to be broken down? All of these things are love's imposter. We create a bond, but the bond destroys you. Ultimately, it may be that Rabbi Akiva and Hillel are not arguing. It's just one's the foundation of the other. Love, yes, love is what it's all about. But love based on what? Love based on respect. That which is hateful to you, don't do to your friend. It's the soul of any true relationship, the foundation of love. It's what Judaism is all about. And it is the attitude and the actions that we need to bring to all of our relationships all the time. And you can tell that to Joe on the plane.
Hi, thanks for watching. If you found this video
You're muted.
Rabbi.
It's better when I'm muted, then you don't have to listen to what I'm saying. Anybody have any comments or any thoughts about what you just saw about the Rabbi Foreman's 10 Commandments?
I do, Rabbi.
Yes.
It was an awful lot to absorb in such little time. But I think that Rabbi Foreman puts all that information to layman's terms, so you understand the 10 Commandments a little deeper than you had ever before. That's all I have to say.
Right, and that's why we've been using his programs. I've been using them on our lunch bunch, as I said, because they do go deeper. But he does also come across in a layman's language, and I really find them fascinating. I have been subscribing to his program since the pandemic began, and so we're using them as a subscription. We didn't just take them off the web; we're paying for them. And I find that they're worth every cent. And I think every time we play something from him, it gives us another way of looking at some of the things maybe we learned in a traditional sense. Anyone else with a comment or any sense or feeling?
Did you send the URL out?
I'm sorry, Steve?
Did you send the URL out for that? The page for it.
The website.
The website.
He wants a copy of the presentation.
Oh, you can have a copy of the presentation. Absolutely. Just go to our Temple Ner Tamid YouTube page and watch it back, because it's going to be up there. Everything we do is up there. But I can talk to you about how you can subscribe to his page if you want afterwards. And you should, because he's really amazing. Anyone else with a thought, comment?
I loved it. I just want to say I loved it. I thought it was great.
It's pretty interesting, isn't he, Carrie?
Yeah, I want to show that to my daughter.
You probably want to see a lot of his things too.
Yeah, I think definitely. Yeah. I mean, I was walking the beach earlier today, obviously listening to all of my Kabbalah stuff. And then this just also just puts it all together too. It all really goes together very, very well. Very interesting.
We take the 10 Commandments for granted, and this really does give it a whole new level, or as you say, you know, different levels of to look at. One of the students today at the school graduation / final gathering came up to me with his dad and his brothers and said, I have a question for you, Rabbi. Are the 10 Commandments above the 613 or a part of the 613? And when I told him that, no, it's a part of the 613, he said, how did they choose them? This is the great question from a child, right? How do you take the 613 commandments and choose just those 10? And I looked at him and I said, those are really highlights, but they're all just as important. And they are. I mean, they really are. But can you imagine? We just spent 38 minutes just looking at these 10 statements and looking at different perspective of what they can mean. And guess what, Irene? We just touched the surface. We could go on and on and on. All right, I'm going to make a toast to peace, because it's still there's still war going on in Israel, and they're still doing some stuff there that we wish wasn't happening. Our brethren, family members that are there listening to sirens going off and watching synagogues burn and houses being bombed and cars burning and violence on the streets. By the way, it's not all bad. I read too that where some violence took place the other day, some local Palestinians and Jews got together to clean up the mess. It's, you know, it's not pretty, but it's not all not pretty. There's some hope here, and that's why our national anthem is Hatikva, the hope for peace, the hope for brotherhood, the hope for being able to live together under those simple 10 commandments as one united people. Baruch atah Adonai v'golam shakol niyeh bivaro. You can join me. L'chaim tovim ul shalom. L'chaim tovim ul shalom. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim tovim ul shalom. Oh, hey, eat that cheesecake. Folks on YouTube and Facebook, we'll see you back here tomorrow morning at